He hit a hole-in-one at Augusta National, turned to celebrate, and then stumbled awkwardly, wincing in pain. His ankle had dislocated. For most players, that would have been the end of the week, but not Tony Finau. He popped it back in, taped it up, and somehow finished inside the top 10 at the Masters just a few days later. That moment captured everything about Finau: the power, the toughness, and the mystery. Because for years, one of the most talented players on the planet was somehow invisible to scouts, underrated by analysts, and overlooked by the system. This is the story of how Tony Finau went from hitting golf balls in a Salt Lake City garage to becoming one of the most dangerous players in the game, and why it took so long for the world to finally see him. Tony Finau was born in 1989 in Salt Lake City, Utah, into a large Polynesian family. His parents, Kelepi and Ravena, were of Tongan and Samoan descent. They weren't golfers. They weren't country club members, but they believed in hard work, faith, and family. Tragically, his mother Ravena passed away in a car accident in 2011, a loss that deeply shaped Tony and his family during his journey. When Tony was young, golf wasn't even on the radar, but Kelepi saw potential in the sport and decided to give his sons a chance. The problem? They couldn't afford memberships, lessons, or private coaches, so he improvised. In their garage, he built a makeshift practice bay with old mattresses for nets, cut-down clubs, and a patch of turf. That garage was where Tony first learned the fundamentals, hitting thousands of balls with his brother Gipper. But it wasn't the only place he trained. As he grew, Tony also practiced and played at local courses around Salt Lake City, testing his skills in real competition. And against all odds, the system worked. At 16, Tony stunned Utah golf by winning the 2006 Utah State Amateur Championship. For most kids, a win like that would have been a ticket to elite junior tournaments and a college golf scholarship. But for Tony, the scouts weren't calling. He wasn't playing the AJGA circuit, he didn't have the exposure, and frankly, the system didn't know how to evaluate a kid from Rose Park, Utah, with Polynesian roots and a homemade swing. He had the talent. What he didn't have was pedigree. By 2007, Tony made a decision that shocked almost everyone. At just 17 years old, he turned professional. Most golfers spend years developing through college programs: Oklahoma State, Stanford, Georgia Tech. That's the path scouts understand. Tony bypassed it entirely, and instantly, he was on the outside looking in. No college resume meant no NCAA showcase, no sponsors' exemptions, no media attention, just the grind of mini tours. He and his brother Gipper spent years grinding on mini tours and smaller circuits, often entering events with limited resources and little recognition. Money was tight, opportunities were scarce, and every start felt like a gamble. Tony even turned to reality TV as a lifeline. In 2009, he entered the Big Break Disney Golf on the Golf Channel. It was a gamble, but exposure was exposure. He played brilliantly, reaching the final before losing in a playoff. The performance earned him fans, prizes arty, but not status. It took nearly 6 years of obscurity before he finally broke through. In 2013, he played on the PGA Tour Canada, and the following year, he won the Stonebray Classic on the Web.com Tour. That victory boosted his standing on the Web.com Tour money list and, combined with his overall performance, helped him secure a PGA Tour card for the 2014-15 season. After almost a decade of being invisible, Tony Finau had finally made it to golf's biggest stage. Finau wasted no time proving he belonged. In 2016, just his second year on tour, he won the Puerto Rico Open, defeating Steve Marino in a playoff for his first PGA Tour victory. It was a breakthrough moment, but it came with a catch. The Puerto Rico Open is scheduled opposite a World Golf Championship event. In 2016, it coincided with the WGC Dell Match Play. So many of the world's top-ranked players are competing elsewhere, leaving the Puerto Rico field generally weaker than a regular tour event. So instead of being celebrated as the next big thing, Finau was labeled talented but unproven. Over the next several seasons, he became golf's ultimate nearly man. Between his 2016 win and his 2021 breakthrough, he stacked up more than 30 top 10 finishes without another victory. Week after week, he was near the top of leaderboards, but the final step eluded him. Golf analysts turned on him. Pundits questioned his mentality. Can he close? Became the cliché attached to his name. But the stats told a different story. At times, he ranked among the best on tour in strokes gained off the tee, and his tee-to-green game was elite. The wins weren't there, but the game was. And then, there was the incident at Augusta. In 2018, Finau was invited to play in the Masters Par 3 contest. On the 7th hole, he made a hole-in-one. Excited, he jogged down the fairway to celebrate, and suddenly rolled his ankle. On live television, viewers watched in horror as his foot bent at an unnatural angle. Everyone assumed his tournament was over, but Tony isn't built like everyone else. He walked off, popped the ankle back in place, and showed up Thursday morning ready to go. 4 days later, he finished in the top 10. It was the kind of toughness that made fans endear him. Yet, incredibly, the narrative didn't change. To the media, he was still the guy who couldn't close. The reality is, Finau was proving himself on the biggest stages. In 2019, he played in the final group of the Masters alongside Tiger Woods, finishing T5 as Woods claimed his 15th major. Later that year, at the Open Championship at Royal Portrush, Finau finished solo third, proving he could contend in any condition. But golf is a sport obsessed with trophies. Near misses don't earn headlines. Without wins, Finau remained underrated. For fans who paid attention, it was maddening. But for Tony, it was motivation. The breakthrough came in August 2021 at the Northern Trust, the opening leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. Finau dueled with Jon Rahm, the world number one at the time, before defeating Cam Smith in a playoff. After years of heartbreak, Tony claimed his first big field win in 5 years. Finally, the label was gone, and once the floodgates opened, the wins came quickly. In July 2022, he won the 3M Open, and 1 week later, he captured the Rocket Mortgage Classic. In November, he added the Houston Open for good measure. 3 wins in 4 months. The can't close narrative was dead. Then, in 2023, he faced Jon Rahm again, this time at the Mexico Open. Rahm was the hottest golfer on the planet, fresh off a Masters victory, but Finau didn't flinch. From start to finish, he never let go of the lead, closing it out with confidence on Sunday. The overlooked kid from Rose Park had become a closer. Was Tony Finau really the best player in the world? For a stretch in 2022 and 2023, you can make the case. He reached as high as number 9 in the official world golf ranking, and his strokes gained profile was among the very best globally. And he wasn't just winning smaller events anymore, he was proving it in majors. At the 2024 U.S. Open at Pinehurst, Finau finished tied for third, another reminder that his story isn't finished, and that his peak might still be ahead of him. What makes Finau truly different, though, is more than his golf swing. It's his identity. He is the face of Polynesian golf, the first PGA Tour winner of Tongan and Samoan descent. He's deeply family-oriented, often traveling with his wife Elena and their 6 children. Fans saw this side of him in Netflix's Full Swing, where his balance of family and career set him apart from many of his peers. Off the course, he runs the Tony Finau Foundation, founded in 2014 to empower underprivileged youth and their families through education, mentorship, scholarships, and wellness programs. He hasn't forgotten the sacrifices his parents made or the garage where it all started. In a sport where money and flash often dominate the conversation, Tony Finau stands out as humble, relatable, and grounded. Today, Tony Finau is proof that being invisible doesn't mean being incapable, and that the best player on the planet might not come from where the system expects. Because sometimes, greatness hides in plain sight.